1.57 where I'm asked to reflect a graph horizontally and vertically. A note that I don't think about it that I'm reflecting a graph horizontally and vertically. I instead think about it as if I'm doing it vertically, I'm multiplying all of the y coordinates by -1. And if I'm doing it horizontally, I'm dividing all the x coordinates by -1. That's what I think of to create these reflections. And I know that seems harder at this stage, but when you end up with multiple things going on, when you get to really challenging problems in this section, thinking about it that way will make your life a lot easier. So really what I want to point out is, even though it says reflection, I'm thinking in terms of a vertical stretch where I'm multiplying the y coordinates by -1. So I have something of this form, except playing the role of b is -1. And when I talk about my reflection over the y-axis, I'm thinking about a horizontal stretch where I'm dividing all of the x coordinates by -1. So something of this form, except playing the role of b is -1. So reflect the graph of this vertically and horizontally. Okay, things they don't ask you to do, but for vertically, I would say this is, I don't know, f of t is equal to the negative of s of t. In other words, it's equal to the negative of the square root of t. Horizontally, maybe I call that g of t. G of t is equal to s of negative t, which is equal to the square root of negative t. Whoa, wait a minute, you can't take the square root of a negative number. Is that problematic? It's not. What you'll see is I'm only going to be allowed to put in negative values for t, because a -4, for example, will give me a +4 here. So that's a good observation. I just said it's a good observation. I made it. If you made that observation, that's fantastic, but don't worry, we're going to take care of that. So reflect the graph. Okay, that's straightforward enough, I guess. If I want to reflect it vertically, I'm thinking about, what if I encountered something like this? How would I graph this guy right here? Well, I'd recognize that I'm multiplying all of the y coordinates by -1. This y coordinate right here is 0. 0 times -1 is 0. This y coordinate is 1. 1 times -1 is -1. This y coordinate is 2. 2 times -1 is -2. I'd end up with a graph that looks something like this, which, using my notation, this would be f of t. Same thing they got here. For g of t, which maybe I should have done in a different color, think about it like if you were given the graph of, or if you were told to graph the square root of -t. First, you'd recognize that you have a horizontal transformation going on here, and that this negative right here, -1 if you want to think about it, tells me I'm going to divide all of the old x coordinates by -1. So this x coordinate that was 0, 0 divided by -1 is 0. This stays here. This x coordinate was 1. 1 divided by -1 is -1. So this guy goes here. This x coordinate is 4. 4 divided by -1 is -4. So this guy goes over here. And my graph of, well, kind of missed it. Let's try again. Yeah, still not great, but good enough. My graph of g of t would look like this. And again, that point I was making earlier about how t would have to be a negative number. Note this graph in red only has a domain from -infinity up to 0. I can't put a positive number like 2 in here, because if t were equal to 2, I'd be asking what's the square root of -2, and I can't do that. But as long as I'm putting negative numbers in, it's not a problem, because this negative changes my negative inputs into a positive number, which I can then take the square root of. Anyways, it's a lot more than this thing asked me to do, but I felt like talking through that stuff might help some people's understanding of this.